Welcome to the Improver Network podcast. The Improver Network mission is to make the world better by helping faith-driven leaders, entrepreneurs, and small business owners improve personally and professionally. Finding balance and maintaining focus in a world of distractions and discouragement can be challenging and frustrating, but we're here to help you discover your purpose, become more productive, and reach your true potential. Now here's your host, Justin Winstead.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Improver Network podcast. Justin and Kenzie are back with you for episode 2.
That's right. We're sweating it out here in Texas.
Yeah, the summer heat is bearing down on us, and but we're trying to stay cool in the AC and getting ready for another great conversation today as we help all of our improvers improve out there. So really excited about the topic that we're going to be bringing up today because we're really going to unfold. Last time we talked about what an improver is and how to think about an improver and their attitudes and their struggles. What are the pros and cons of having that mindset of an improver? We're going to have a 3-part series over the next few weeks. We're really going to be looking at, well, how does a person really improve optimally? How can they improve in a healthy way? Because as we discussed last week, sometimes improvers, they can try to make things better and end up making them worse if it's not done in the right way or if it's scattered or if they don't have direction. So what we're here to do today is to try to start laying the foundation for some direction for those people who are like, okay, I am an improver. That's me, and I want to get better, but I want to do it the right way.
Right.
And where do I focus? Where do I start?
Or maybe you don't know that you are an improver, and so we're hoping to tap into that energy and help you see what you can focus on to become more productive.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, these topics that we're going to be discussing, I think, apply to pretty much anybody who just wants to grow or make progress or be better in any situation.
And everybody should want to grow. Healthy things grow.
Yep, especially for the believers out there. Yep. And the Improver Network mission is to help believers improve the way they live, learn, work, and play. And so we're going to be looking at how to apply this in all of those areas. So the topics that we're going to be discussing over these next 3 episodes are going to be content, community, and coaching, and why those are important to improve and to make progress. So in this episode today, we're really going to be diving into that first layer on that, and that is the layer of content.
So what do you mean by content?
Yeah, that's a broad word out there, and it is kind of confusing because content is just what is held in something, or it's just the details in something. But this idea of content, the way we're using it is we're kind of insinuating positive, helpful, encouraging, educational content. Part of the way of thinking about content is the opposite of content. So if you don't have good content in the life of an improver, then that means you're left to your own thoughts.
That, Lord help us if that's all we have.
Last time we talked about that inner critic, right? Yes. That inner voice, that thing that just sabotages us and just the imposter syndrome that drags us down. And if we don't have the right kind of content, that's something that surfaces up is we get into our own head and it's not good. Or when we talk about content too, some people have bad content. And so they are listening to the wrong people, getting information from the wrong places. And that's actually hindering their ability to be better.
Right. And spinning their wheels, spinning their tires.
Absolutely. So we're really going to challenge all of our listeners out there to think about the types of things that you're allowing into your mind and the types of content that you're surrounding yourselves with, because you really want educational, encouraging, and enlightening content.
And we are doing things the good Southern way. We've got 3 C's, and as Justin just used 3 E's, education, enlightenment, so you can follow along easily.
Absolutely. Well, hey, what I want to look at now is there was a study done by the Mayo Clinic, and they really listed out this idea of like the way you think and what you put in your mind and the types of effects that actually has on your life. And so they made a list of some of the benefits of positive thinking, and I thought this was really neat. And this is why it matters, because part of it is like, well, why do I care about the content, or why do I care about improving the way I think? Well, one, it's going to help you improve and make progress in the areas that matter to you, but also there are these other effects. So some of the health benefits include increased lifespan, lower rates of depression, lower levels of distress and pain, greater resistance to illnesses. I find that very fascinating that people who are generally optimistic and think positively actually have stronger immune systems.
Well, it's that idea of the self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
Where you can just think yourself into being sick and make yourself sick over something, either from worrying or telling yourself the worst what-if scenario.
Little side note here, do you think that people who have greater immune systems are just more likely to be positive because they're not sick as often, or do you think it's actually the positive outlook and the positive thinking that leads to them employing habits?
So I have a theory.
Okay.
And I've discussed this with your wife. In our home, there's hardly ever a sick day, and I really think that's because a lot of times when my children wake up, we set a tone for a positive day. And so we are taking our supplements and we are doing all the right healthy things. But really, if my kids are feeling sick, a lot of times if they say, I don't feel good, there's some underlying mood. And then once you find that out, it really does affect your health. And so Catherine and I have noticed our kids are really not as sick maybe as much as others. I don't know if that's a mindset thing, if that's our lifestyle, but I know for myself as well, I have made myself sick. Over just worrying and the what if. So
and the anxiety and the negative thoughts, which is part of this Mayo Clinic article here and what they were referencing.
I also don't want to dismiss that there are
Sure.
health issues, but you're thinking, it really is connected to your body is all connected for a reason. So you can't.
And usually
that.
one thing leads to the next, right? So if you start out with a positive mindset, you maybe make better health decisions, which lead to a stronger immune system. And now because you have a stronger immune system, you're not getting sick as often.
Right.
And now that you're not getting sick as often, it leads to more positive choices. And so...
Right. Or, as we just talked about, you're not magnifying what is wrong with you. So some people tend to just play on their ailments a lot more than others who can look right past it.
Because the negative of this idea can also come into play where you make negative health choices that lead to being sick, which lead to more negative health choices because you're like, man, I just feel so bad. I'm not motivated to go work out. And so you don't work out and you decrease your strength. And because you're weaker, you're more susceptible. And so these things build
They compound
on each other.
On one another.
Yeah, but I just think it's so neat that Mayo Clinic has drawn this connection between the greater resistance to illnesses and positive thinking on there. They also reference reduced risk of death from cancer, better cardiovascular health, reduced risk of death from respiratory conditions or other infections, and they also have better coping skills. And so all of these are really great benefits to positive thinking and how it affects your health. And so really for our body and for our livelihoods and our lifestyles, it really is helpful for us to make sure that we're thinking the right way.
Right.
But then the question is, how do we make sure we're thinking the right way, right?
What do we compare it to? What do we hold up as truth and as right?
Yeah, and that's why good content and the right kind of content is so important because it will shape our thinking in that. And so part of what you want to do is be able to identify negative thinking, and then when you can identify negative thinking, you can think about, well, where's the source of that? Where did that come from? And so some of the examples of negative self-talk and that inner critic when it starts getting loud is it would be this the blaming. When you notice internally you just really start shifting the blame, then there should be some alarm bells going on like, oh, you know what, this is negative self-talk. We're familiar with that book QBQ, right?
Yeah, I love it. It's a quick, easy read. You can go through several chapters in one sitting.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite parts about that book is just the take responsibility in it. And it's eliminate the blame shifting. But, sometimes us improvers, we can be kind of good at shifting the blame because we think, no, I've already thought through it. My way is the best way. And if it didn't work, there's no way it was a reflection of me, right? Because I definitely did it the right way.
I gave it 150%. So go ahead and try. You'll never measure up.
Another way of saying this is some people try to justify their actions.
No,
and, in our home, we call it justifying it. So don't justify or justify your actions out there, accept responsibility. But when you hear those blame games being perpetuated in your mind, you can recognize that as negative self-talk. Also, things like magnifying. So we go from justifying to magnifying. And when you think of magnifying, that's making... What's the phrase? Making a mountain out of a molehill. There you go. Just really blowing something up out of proportions. I know that we've both seen this and we have kids, right? So,
well, I was just going to say for myself, when I'm hungry, everything is harder, and or when you're tired, you tend to do that as well.
Yeah, and so little things like someone showing up late for something, or a delivery not being on time, or the Wi-Fi is not working, man, it all seems so much bigger whenever you're dealing with stressful situations and you've got that negative self-talk on there. One of the things they referenced that I thought was really interesting, too, about negative self-talk was saying you should do something. Because to me, you should, like, that's not necessarily a negative thing, but they were saying that is negative self-talk. Mm-hmm. So what triggers with you when you see that they're associating that with negative self-talk? Because improvers live in the world of, I ought to do this, I should do this. This is the ideals that we're always striving for. So how is it negative self-talk to think about you should?
I think it doesn't allow for flexibility or different personality types. It doesn't. If you're telling somebody you should do something, it's almost as if you've got it figured out and you're the expert on everything. So like it says, saying you should do something, you think of all the things you think you should do, and then you blame yourself for not doing them accordingly. So you're just setting yourself up for failure, or others up for failure when you should them.
That's exactly right. And part of that is we were talking about blaming others, and that goes in with judgment. But the flip side of that is when we put all the shame on ourselves, and that goes into guilt. And
right.
So really guilt and judgment are two things that can really impede, our mental wellness there.
And when we're talking about negative content, the difference between when the Holy Spirit speaks to you is that's a conviction to turn and do what's right. Satan, a lot of times when he's speaking negatively to you, it has a lot more to do with shame.
Yes.
And so that's a really good way to differentiate between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And since you mentioned that, again, for the believers out there, when we think about content is less about just trying to will yourself into more positive thinking and to try to force yourself to be an optimist. That's not really what we're getting at here, is like you always have to go around all sunshine and roses, because that's not the way It's not the way life is. But what we're really trying to say is you've got to take every thought captive, and you have to put good things into your mind. And so for us, you mentioned the Holy Spirit. Part of that is the fact that we have God's Spirit in us, and we let His voice speak to us in it. But it also involves going to His Word, and filling our mind and heart with those thoughts. It also involves getting wise counsel and surrounding ourselves with people who can also speak life into our lives. And so those are all ways that we can fill ourselves up with our faith-based, content.
It's really
truth.
about what you're giving permission to be in your life, what radio stations you're allowing to come to wash over you in the car, what podcasts you're listening to, what books you're choosing, what tone you're setting for your household.
Absolutely. And so those are some ways specifically for Christians, but really for anyone that is saying, you know what, I do want to have a more positive outlook. I want to generate more positive thinking in my own mind, silence that inner critic. Some of these other things that they can do to help in that area would be to be open to humor. And, that's a struggle. A lot of people, it's really sad, but they spend the majority of their week never laughing or never actually having something that they can smile at or really enjoy from a humor perspective. I know that your husband is quite humorous at times. And
that's one of the things I love about him. He can turn any situation into a joke or an inside joke with us. And I really appreciate that when I'm getting way too serious or focusing on the minor details.
Yeah, you really got to learn to laugh at some of life's problems, right? It actually brings down the stress. And again, magnifying was one of those negative self-taught things. Well, when you make humor out of it, that's the opposite. You're minimizing it. You're saying, you know what? This is okay. I can laugh at this. Right. It's going to be all right. So,
and not taking a year to be able to laugh at it, but to find something in the moment that's comical.
Yeah. Another positive step that you could take is to identify an area of change. And again, trying to identify where is that negative self-talk coming from? Is it that you've got another podcast, or is it something that you're reading online? Do you have some people on social media that you're following that is really magnifying that negative voice? in your life, and you need to identify that and say, what do I need to do to change that? Sometimes people need to change the situations they find themselves in with people or places, but also their entertainment.
Right.
I know a lot of us feel like, well, I'm an adult. I can watch and listen to what I want to watch and listen to. Has zero impact on the way I live my life. And I think there is some truth to that. Probably you could watch an episode or something, or you can see things here and there, and it doesn't change. But what we know is over time, what goes into your mind influences what comes out. And so being able to identify certain areas of like, man, maybe this entertainment choice I'm making or this person I'm following or letting influence me is actually putting some of these negative voices in my head. People have done research on the media, and if you listen to too much of the news out there, that can affect your positivity.
And just putting boundaries on things. We don't watch the news, but I've downloaded an app that just gives me the top three news stories of the day, and that's what I listen to and move on with. But you did mention, relationships, and sometimes there will be people in your life that you have to put up healthy boundaries with. What do they say? It's easier for them to pull you down than for you to pull them up.
Right.
And while we all want to be good influences, a lot of times the people we surround ourselves with is who we begin to act like and think like, and so you just always have to keep in the back of your mind, if they're not pulling you up, they're probably pulling you down.
Yeah, it's always interesting. You get the person who wants to encourage and lift up the others, but they go into their circle where they end up, everybody is pulling down on them. When what should happen is you've got your good circle where you're trying to reach out to them and bring them into it and pull them up in that. But yeah, it does take that group. And that kind of goes in with another tip, which is to surround yourself with positive people. And so a lot of times when I ask people, like, man, your attitude is so great. How are you always happy? You're always smiling. What you find out is they've got people in their life who encourage that and affirm that and uplift that. And so some people have a negative outlook and a negative voice in their head because all the people that are around them, that's what they are, right?
Right.
Yeah, you get around the naysayers and you become a naysayer yourself. What's that? Birds of a feather flock together. Right. Yeah, and then practice positive self-talk. And so part of that voice that's in your head is that you actually have to direct that, and we do have control over that voice, and we can remind ourselves and teach ourselves certain ways of thinking more accurately about the world. We can choose to speak truth into our own mind. And sometimes that's a weird thing because we're talking about speaking to ourselves, right? We're not going schizophrenic here. No. But, we are saying that, hey, there's this inner battle that goes on, and sometimes our mind and heart are at war against each other, and sometimes we need to just speak to it and say, you know what, this isn't right or this is right, and we have to channel it.
Mm-hmm. And as parents, you get this. You would never say to your children, you would never point out all their flaws. You would tend to encourage them and build them up and draw out their strengths. And so why wouldn't you do that for yourself as well?
Absolutely. So I think those are some very practical ways that we can encourage more positive thinking in it. A lot of this is dealing with motivation. Zig Ziglar was so big on, the self-talk. I mean, he even would have cards and encourage people to read those cards every single day, look in the mirror, repeat the certain truths that you know to be true. And as you do that, your mind ends up learning that and internalizing those things. And if you're not familiar with some of Zig's teaching on that, I would encourage people to go out and research that because it did make a difference. Now, he got made fun of a little bit by some people because they said, hey, that motivation stuff doesn't last. And he said, yeah, that's true, but neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it often.
That's right.
And so part of what we would say is the same thing on content is you got to have good content often that you are engaging in, that you are choosing to implement into your life, and that you're choosing to take time to read, take time to listen to things that are going to encourage you, take time to look at things that are going to push you towards your goals. People have hopes and dreams and ambitions that they want to reach towards, but then the things that they're engaging in and putting into their mind are actually counterproductive to that. So, well, I think that's very helpful, and really this is more of an encouragement and a reminder. I think most people out there listening are going, okay, I think I already knew that content's good, but we really wanted to highlight this and really discuss it because we want to reinforce that people may need to do a evaluation of their life and see if they need new content to go in there. And we also wanted to share this because this is part of what we're doing at the Improver Network, right? We're saying that we exist to help people in this battle of the mind and to help improve your way of thinking. And so part of the way we do that is through content. Mm-hmm. So that content, what are some things that you know about the Improver Network and how we deliver that content to people?
My favorite way is through this podcast, obviously.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, some of these are open for everybody to hear, but there will be some that you'll have to join in on the membership to hear. And that's where we're going to take a deep dive into what is exactly content, what is community. And so those will be coming up. So make sure you join to hear the rest of these. Also, after every podcast, you can find links to some of the resources that we're referring to, and that'll be a great way to get your head in on some of the books that we're referencing, some of the articles. And then another fun way is through our book club. And we'll be reading all different kinds of books for all different interest levels, and then we'll be discussing those and really pulling out things that we can apply to our lives and practical tips, and all of that is going to be great content.
Yeah, and so no matter what your schedule is in life, if you're the type that, I like to go to the gym, listen to a podcast, we can deliver content to you that way. Mm-hmm. If you're more like, I prefer the written book and be able to make notes and dog-ear pages and then discuss that with people, we're going to have that option. Some of you out there love like online self-guided courses, and we've got those and mini classes available through our membership portal where people can go online. We're hitting it all. Basically, if you're like, I just want access to the information and I've got the time and the ability to read that, to take that in, and then to apply that, then we're going to make that available to you. And it's something that, there's unlimited availability to what we have in this area. And so we just want to invite you to connect with us on the Improver Network as one of our fans level members and get access to all this content. Because in our mind, this is just going to really help you to grow. It's going to help you to improve. And that's what we're building. We're building a network of improvers. And so we know if you're getting the right content, you're putting the right things in your mind, it's going to change everything else.
Absolutely. So where do we start, Justin?
Yeah, so if you wanted to do that, you would just go online to improver.network. That's www.improver.network. Just scroll down towards the bottom of that page and check out the membership options. And again, that base level of membership is going to get you into all of our content. And as one last little encouragement to you on this, I want you to think about the fact that you may want your life to be different today than what it has been maybe over the past year or the past several years. So you're saying, you know what, I want things to be better. Well, if you want things to be better, the only way they're going to be better is if you change your habits. And the only way your habits change is if you change your actions. And your actions are the result of your attitudes, which are the result of your thoughts. Mm-hmm. And your thoughts are formed by what you put into your mind. So if you really want to change your life, you have to change your thoughts, because by changing them and putting the right content in, you're going to develop the right attitudes, which lead to the right actions, which lead to the right habits, and habits always lead to the results. And so that's really why it's so important to have this content. So you want to change your life, change the content you're putting in, and the Improver Network is here to help you with that. And this is going to wrap up part 1 of this 3-part series, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
See you later.
Thank you for listening to this production of the Improver Network podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you can catch future episodes. For more information about the Improver Network, visit us online at improver.network. That's www.improver.network. And connect with us on social. Until next time, keep getting better.